What are the best habits to build for success? How do you know which ones are worth your time? 10 years ago, I hit one of the lowest points in my life. I had left my high-paying corporate job, poured all my savings into my businesses, which weren't taking off, and I was even going through a divorce. I knew I needed to rebuild my life, starting with better habits as a first step toward that transformation. But with so much contradicting advice out there, I really didn't know who to believe. I tried productivity hacks, financial systems, and relationship tips. Some worked, but most didn't stick. Fortunately, I started my business reading graphics soon after. As we summarize the best insights from experts from around the world, I also tested and refined those ideas in my own life. So I discovered that not all habits were working for me, and I was spreading myself too thin by trying out too many habits. Things started to work when I finally narrowed down into 3 sets of habits that transformed the key areas of my life. How I work to get more results with less effort, how I manage my money so I don't get financially stuck again, and how to nurture my relationships to stay connected with the people who truly matter to me. Today, I'm sharing those habits with you so you can skip the trial and error and focus on what actually works. But you might have slightly different goals, in which case, do stick around until the end, because I'll also be sharing a list of 100 bonus habits that you can use to improve other key areas of your life. With that, let's dive into the first area, productivity. Since young, I was taught to work hard. I would study late into the night for my exams, and during my corporate days, I would wake up at like 4 a.m. to check my emails, because my work days were just so crazily packed. But after a few years of doing that in my business, I realized that it simply wasn't working anymore. I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and I was burning out fast. That's when I realized something that changed everything for me. Productivity isn't about time management, it's about energy management. No matter how well you schedule your time, you cannot do your best work if you are drained. But when you align your highest priority work with your peak energy, everything flows much easier. So instead of trying to organize my time better, I started to optimize my energy. And here are 3 productivity habits that transformed my approach. Habit number 1, morning priming routine. A morning routine is crucial because it sets the tone for your day. If you begin with emails, messages, and social media, you enter a reactionary mode and you get sucked into all kinds of clutter and distractions. So each morning, before checking my phone or emails, I start with a short morning routine inspired by Tony Robbins. I take 4 deep inhales and exhales to center my focus, and then I spend 5 to 8 minutes to think of the things that I'm grateful for. I visualize positive healing power flowing through me to all aspects of my life and what it feels like to accomplish my goals for the day. Then I get my blood flowing with a short burst of intense exercise. My default is 20 burpees, which takes less than a minute, but it really gets my heart racing. This simple 10-minute routine keeps me grounded and fills me with positive energy. So I'm in the right mental and physical state to start the day. My actions become more intentional, my focus is sharper, and I get more done without feeling stressed or overwhelmed. This also primes me for the next productivity habit, which is goal zones for deep work. In the past, my days were filled with emails, meetings, messages, and all kinds of ad hoc tasks. By the end of each day, I wonder, where did all my time go? Then I started to block out my goal zones, which are basically 2 hours of distraction-free blocks of time, which I use for deep, focused work. During goal zones, I switch off all notifications and focus only on high-impact tasks like strategic planning or creating important content for my business. I would set a timer, work on 1 task at a time until the time is up, and with totally no task switching. This single habit alone allows me to complete more in 2 hours than I used to do in 2 days. So before goal zones, I was constantly playing catch up, but now I get about 80% of my most important work done in just 8 to 10 hours of work a week. In fact, I currently have 4 goal zones a week, each focusing on a different theme. Even if you start with just 1 goal zone a week, that can already make a real difference by helping you to optimize your peak hours. But what if your energy starts to drain? That leads us to the next productivity habit, active versus passive rest. Most people don't realize this. Top performers don't work hard all the time. They actually rest strategically. I used to feel guilty about resting when I had so much work piling up. But over time, I noticed that the harder I pushed, the less focused and productive I became. So I started to take short strategic breaks, alternating between active versus passive rest. For example, I might work intensively for about 90 minutes, then take an active break like a short walk, stretching, or doing some jumping jacks. Then, after another 90 minutes, I might take a passive break by closing my eyes for a few minutes or listening to some music. You can experiment with your own mix of active versus passive rejuvenation. And in this other video, I break down my strategy for how to incorporate rest throughout my day. Now, you might notice that these 3 productivity habits are actually complement one another. You can start with just 1 and stack them progressively over time. So time and energy are valuable resources, but so is money. So let's talk about money habits that transform my financial situation. Back when I was in my corporate role, I was earning a decent 5-digit figure a month, and I felt very confident about my career progression. So I was generous with my spending, because after all, I deserve to pamper myself after all the hard work, right? But after a few years in business, my finances were a mess. I had used up most of my savings, and my earnings could not sustain my lifestyle. So up to that point, I had read about money management, but I never really had to use it. And now, I had no choice but to use it for real. And here are 3 money habits that completely changed my financial situation for the better. Habit number 1, tracking daily expenses. If you find yourself looking at your bank account and thinking, where did all my money go? Then this habit is a must. When I was earning more than enough, I never really thought twice about my expenditure. But when you're on a budget, the money just disappears with a small purchase here and there. So I started to track my expenses every day. There are tons of free apps out there, but for me, I just use the notepad on my phone. At first, I thought it would be tedious, but the truth is, after a week, I started to see patterns that I never noticed before, like how small purchases added up to hundreds of dollars a month. And that's when I realized, you cannot control something that you are not aware of. I started to notice obvious areas that could be cut, like dining out unnecessarily, subscriptions that I wasn't using, and purchases that didn't add value to my life. Oh, by the way, if you have credit card and automatic bank payments, you must also account for those expenditures. But the big changes came when I combined these with the next habit. Money habit number 2, use the envelope system. The idea is simple. If you had only $1,000, you take the cash and split it into envelopes by categories, like essentials, savings, and discretionary spending. Once you run out of cash in any envelope, you basically cannot spend anymore. At my low point, my expenses were 3 times my income, because I was still living with my old spending habits that no longer matched my new reality. So something had to change. I forced myself to define my priorities and set a budget around them. For example, I gave up my condominium and switched to public housing. I chose $1 coffees at the local markets instead of a $7 Starbucks coffee. I gave up the gyms and went for a free run in the park. I intentionally cut my personal expenditure so that I could still have a budget for occasional nice meals and travel with my family and close friends. And more importantly, I made sure that I set aside money for savings and investment before I allocated the rest. Each time my income increased, I went through the same allocation process, so I was intentional with how I use my money. Now, I manage my envelopes digitally using a free app, so you can take your pick of the apps out there. And the result was, I was spending a third of what I used to spend, but without any major loss of satisfaction or enjoyment. And that brings me to the last money habit, the 24-hour rule. Whenever you are tempted to buy something unplanned, make it a habit to wait for 24 hours first. Ask yourself, do I really need this, or do I just want it? And did I set aside the funds for this? If you didn't budget for it, then the answer is simple. No, do not buy. Don't touch your envelopes for savings or essentials. The only exception is if you are transferring money between sub-envelopes, like spending more on travel instead of socials. Even then, wait 24 hours before you decide to say yes. Because 80% of the time, my urge to buy was gone by the next day. And for the remaining 20%, I ended up finding better deals or a smarter way to serve the same goal. Again, all 3 money habits are complementary, so you can start with any one of them and gradually add on the rest. And the surprising thing was, instead of being restricted, I actually found them liberating, because I could now enjoy guilt-free spending with no decision fatigue. And now, let's move on to the last part, which is one of the most important areas of my life, strengthening my relationships. I used to get so caught up in work that I neglected the important people in my life. I told myself, I'll call them later, or we'll catch up soon. But the truth is, I didn't really follow through. Or I find myself checking my phone constantly when we actually meet up. Like anything else in life, relationship needs intentional, consistent effort. And here are the 3 relationship habits that help me to stay connected with the people who matter most. The first relationship habit, time tracking for your loved ones. We track our time for work, we track our spending for finances, but we seldom track our time for the most important people in our lives. So I started scheduling time for family and friends in my calendar. At the end of each month, I will ask myself, have I spent enough quality time with the people that I care about this month? Now you might ask, what if I don't have enough time for everybody? Well, just like budgeting for money, I had to choose what and who to give up to make time for those I truly care about. I also found it useful to combine pockets of time, like sharing a hobby with my loved ones. But spending time alone isn't enough, which brings us to the next relationship habit, love tank check-ins. Have you ever felt like despite your best efforts, the other person still feels disconnected? That's because not everyone experiences love the same way. This habit is about taking time to consider if you're feeling their love tank. That is, by showing care in a way that matters to them, be it quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, or gifts. You You can learn more about these 5 love languages in this other video. So, the next time you set aside time for someone important, ask yourself, what's the best way to spend this time so that I can fill their love tank? Of course, intention and reality can turn out to be very different, which is why we need the last habit, the 10-second rule. One of the biggest relationship killers is reacting emotionally in the moment. I used to snap back immediately when I felt misunderstood or frustrated. But over time, I realized that it didn't really achieve anything except hurt the relationship. So I started to apply this simple but very powerful habit, the 10-second rule. Whenever I felt triggered in a relationship, I would just bite my tongue and pause for 10 seconds before responding. I use those 10 seconds to remind myself, what's my goal here? Most of the time, what I was about to say would only result in the opposite of what I wanted. This habit took me a long time to build, but it really helped to prevent a lot of unnecessary conflict and drama. Overall, the biggest lesson I've learned about habits is this: small intentional habits compound over time. So, which of the habits here will help you the most right now? A morning ritual, tracking your expenses, or doing a love tank check-in? Just start with one habit and gradually build from there. Besides productivity, relationships, and money, habits can help you in virtually any aspect of your life. Here are some other areas that might be important to you. For example, if you want to focus specifically on your physical and mental health, here's an excerpt from my business reading graphics. The right habits can also help you to stay healthy, strong, and energized, such as making exercise a part of your day and choosing healthier foods. To get started, try simple habits like drinking a glass of water in the morning or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Habits can also shape your mental health. Studies have shown that mindfulness practices, self-reflection, reducing screen time, stress management, and emotional management all affect how you perceive your daily experiences, thereby affecting your mental health. We can translate those into small habits like starting your day with 10 deep breaths or limiting screen times to specific periods in the day. Whatever your goals might be, scan this QR code for a useful list of 100 habits to help you in different areas of your life. If you want to understand more about how to build effective habits, then check out this other video where we share the science of habits formation. Thanks for joining me on this video. Remember to like and subscribe to Growth Garden for more insights to do more with less. And check out the useful links in the description below for other habit building strategies and tips.